Yesterday, 2 adults and 19 children were killed. Law enforcement officials now say this morning that the 18-year-old shooter barricaded himself inside a classroom and shot at anyone who was in his way. All of the children who were killed were in the same class. Throughout the evening, parents were providing DNA to investigators in order to help identify the victims. And family members have started sharing the names of the victims, including the two fourth-grade teachers, Eva Morales and Irma Garcia, both women in their 40s. The children that we know of so far are all 9 and 10 years of age. With me now is Kirk Burkhalter, law professor and former NYPD detective. Good morning. I'm glad you can be with us. Your thoughts right now as you've had some time to absorb yet another mass shooting in the United States. I talked to you just last week after the Buffalo shooting at Tops.
Certainly, and that's the first thought that comes to mind. We just spoke about this last week, and here we are with an event, if one can even imagine, which seems just a little bit more horrific because of the age of the victims. The children and the elderly are the most vulnerable members of our community. It's bad enough. I mean, when someone loses their life and when several folks lose their life in such a senseless manner. But as you put up these photos and we heard that child describing the incident. It's just unbelievable. We all think about where we were in fourth and fifth grade and if we would even be able to comprehend what occurred. And chances are these children will be unable to comprehend this horrific event. It's in this country, it's just time has come to cease the rhetoric and to take some form of action. This has become somewhat of the new normal, but it doesn't mean we have to accept that by any means.
Are you optimistic? Are you hopeful that change will come as a result of this? You know as well as I do, so many people said if Newtown didn't do it, nothing would. But here we are again, a decade later, 19 children slaughtered in one classroom, and there were multiple survivors, as you point out, and as we just heard, witness this and whose lives are now marred forever.
Well, I am cautiously optimistic, and one, because that's my nature, and two, not so much because of my great faith in our political process, but more so in my faith in people. And I think that the American people have just about come to the tipping point with the proliferation of gun violence in this country, not only with mass shootings, but also with crime and random shootings. I live here in New York, where crime has really spiked, and the root of all evil here tends to be the proliferation of firearms, and in particular assault weapons and ghost guns and so forth. Public can only take but so much, and perhaps that will be the impetus for some type of change that may push our lawmakers into taking some form of federal action.
You're a former NYPD detective. Can you talk to us about what would have been going on in those first moments when law enforcement were alerted to the fact that there was an active shooter entering a school? We know that there had been a domestic a short time before with the alleged shooter attacking his grandmother and then taking off in a vehicle that crashed. But how did law enforcement respond? What has changed in terms of response to an active shooting?
Well, what's interesting is no matter where the jurisdiction is, if it's a very populous area or a rural area such as where this occurred, the average police officer is not riding in their vehicle or walking their beat, thinking, wow, I may encounter an active shooter or mass shooting situation within the next 5 minutes. It's just something that police officers don't necessarily think about while they are trained for it. When they respond here, they have several missions. One is to protect life. The other is to protect themselves, because after all, they can't help anyone if they don't protect themselves. And they also have very limited information. So you have to figure when they respond to the scene, they don't know where the shooter is. They don't know if there's one shooter or multiple shooters. They don't know what type of weapons the shooter has. And certainly nowadays, as we have seen, they don't know if the shooter has body armor. So these officers are responding, especially to a school. They don't know what they may find. I think they did a heck of a job as far as keeping their cool and attempting to do their number one job, which is to neutralize the threat. And that's what they appear to do. But it's something that, all the training in the world really can't prepare you for unless you're in a war zone. And this is an everyday, all day occurrence. That's a very situation. But remember, our police officers, while they are paramilitary, members of a paramilitary organization, they are civilians and they are operating in a civilian environment where the mission of the police is far more broad than simply responding to shootings.
What are the next steps in the investigation based on your experience?
The primary goal now is first and foremost to provide any and all support to the victims, which also comes in the families of the victims, rather, which also comes in the form of closure. So the victims certainly need to know why this occurred. Police need to find out if what the motivation was, if there was anyone that provided any form of assistance, how this young man obtained the gun or guns that he used. And it seems like they were obtained legally, which just boggles the mind. And this will be achieved by mining through all of the social media data that is related to the shooter, and also interviewing and or interrogating, depending on the nature of their relationship, family members, colleagues, school classmates, and so forth, to try to paint, not only find motivation, but to try to paint a picture and develop a profile of this young man. And at the end of the day, this entire nation needs to understand why this occurred, what would motivate someone to do this, certainly given this came just a week or so after the shooting in Buffalo, and there are similarities. Yeah. The police want to determine, is this a copycat crime of some nature?
Well, the obvious similarities, young men, 18 years old. I don't even know if you're a man then, but you're a young man. Some would say you're still a child, that are able to obtain deadly assault weapons, Kirk.
Absolutely. Legally. And this is something that we see in common. We certainly know that young men of that age can be quite impressionable, as you correctly stated. Many of us would still consider folks at that age a child. I think I very much was at that age. And your brain and is not fully formed and able to process information like someone 20 years older. So that certainly is in common. The style of weapon that these shooters seem to be choosing are these AR-15 styled semi-automatic weapons that shoot 2-3 rounds. So this seems to be the weapon of choice, partially because obviously it's easy to obtain, depending on the state that one is in. So there are similarities here. We saw this after 9/11. There were some similarities with these lone wolf type attacks, but that certainly doesn't mean that you would rule out other folks. The big question here, of course, is why a school? Was this a crime of opportunity, or was he targeting this school? That's the huge question here.
I do want to ask you one other question. Forgive my ignorance, although I'm a little bit glad that I am ignorant on this subject. These AR-15 assault rifles, where do you buy one, and why would you need a gun with that much power, Kirk?
Well, that's the question for the ages. My father, who's a retired police sergeant, and I were just talking about this morning. So this AR-15 styled rifle that shoots this particular round, depending on the capacity, if the capacity of the weapon, meaning that clip that fits into the weapon, is only 5 rounds or so, this gun is regulated like a hunting rifle. Even though it looks menacing, for all intensive purposes, given the round that it shoots and the fact that it only fires in a semi-automatic fashion, in most states it tends to be regulated the same way that you would go and buy a shotgun or some other type of hunting rifle. It is through converting the gun where it's able to fire in an automatic fashion or hold more rounds where it becomes so menacing and deadly. So that is a major problem that we have, that anyone can go out and the same way that they would buy a hunting rifle to go hunt rabbits or quail, that they can buy a weapon that can import such mass destruction. It's sad, it's unfortunate, and it is unfortunate that someone would sell a weapon like that, even if it's legal, to an 18-year-old. I cannot understand what goes through the mind of someone who, even though it's legal, says, okay, I guess it's okay for me to hand this kid this weapon that has the capacity to do this much damage.
So would a background check prevented this person on his 18th birthday from buying those two weapons?
So that's an excellent question. It's a good possibility that it would not have, unless we find out that he had a history of mental illness or some type of criminal history in his background. If those things weren't present, a background check may not have presented this. The question is why do we sell these types of weapons to civilians? This is not a hunting rifle, even though it's regulated in the same fashion because of its design and so forth. It is actually a very inefficient weapon. A true person that hunts for sport would never take this weapon out for hunting. It's just not that type of weapon. This is designed to kill people, quite frankly.
And in this case, children. Kirk Burkhalter, he's a law professor and former NYPD detective. Thank you so much.